It's now time for the Mike Wagner Show, powered by Sonic Web Studios. Visit online at sonicwebstudios.com for all your needs. The Mike Wagner Show can be heard on Spreaker, Spotify, iHeartRadio, YouTube, iTunes, Anchor FM, Radio Public, and the MikeWagnerShow.com. Mike brings you great guests and interesting people from all across the globe. So sit back, relax, and enjoy another great episode of the Mike Wagner Show.
Hey everybody, it's Mike from the Mike Wagner Show, powered by Sonic Web Studios. Visit online at sonicwebstudios.com for all your needs. Looking at a professional website without breaking your budget? Sonic Web Studios is the answer. Sonic Web Studios offers fast, affordable custom web designs that blow the competition away. Call today, 1-800-303-3960. That's 1-800-303-3960. Or email to support at sonicwebstudios.com. Mention the Mike Wagner Show. Get 10% off your first order. Sonic Web Studios. Take your image to the next level. Also, the Mike Wagner Show can be heard on the MikeWagnerShow.com. You can check our Facebook page at facebook.com/the Mike Wagner Show. You can download and listen on Facebook, SoundCloud, Spreaker, Spotify, and iHeartRadio. Also on Anchor FM, Radio Public, iTunes, Google Play, over 25 podcast platforms. Take the Mike Wagner Show with you on any mobile device. Subscribe to the Mike Wagner Show on the YouTube channel. Also follow the Mike Wagner Show on Instagram and Twitter today. We're here with a wonderful lady and also a singer, activist, and author, and making a big difference in the Baltimore area and also making an impact nationwide as well. And not only she's the lead singer of War on Women, or WOW for short, basically taking on a number of issues as well, too, like the right to choose, universal access, feminist issues, and sexism, and more. And also got a book called Making Spaces Safer, which is the appropriate time to talk about during this pandemic and beyond, and how to make things safer and what to do in certain situations. And these are obviously very, very different times. And live, ladies and gentlemen, from beautiful downtown Baltimore, the singer of War on Women and the author of Making Spaces Safer and Making Things Safer and More Happening for Everybody, the difference maker, Shawna Potter. Shawna, good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Thanks for joining us today.
Thank you so much for having me. That's quite an introduction.
Well, I'm looking forward to great people like you talking about your group War on Women, the new book Making Spaces Safer, and of course educating the public and why you need to make spaces safer for a reason, what to do, what not to do, and everything else in certain places, certain situations. And of course, I myself could use some lessons as well. And before we get into all of that, first of all, tell us how you got your career started.
Well, define career.
well, talking about how you got started, it can be either as an author, as a singer, or just in entertainment in general. So you can pick and choose how you got started.
I think, well, I've always been interested in music. I've always been moved by music. It's always played a really important part in my life. And so as soon as I could pick up a guitar, start writing songs, start performing, I did. I laugh at the idea of a career because I think, like so many Americans right now, I'm in a position of, freelancing, gig work, hustling, doing what I can to make ends meet. And there's not a lot of, funding or money for creative endeavors or social justice endeavors like writing a book on safer spaces. So, didn't mean to laugh at you. It's just like funny to think about right now during a pandemic, especially.
No, it's perfectly okay. And, I've had some people say when they had so many jobs, they say they're small business owners. And one prominent leader says that we're all small business owners. It depends on how you use your skills. And that's why I said careers, that we're actually small business owners as well. So I'm not here to, correct people on that. But when I think about that, I had that same thought. It's like career. What career? But if it's something you love, it's not considered work. I mean, you do got to thank Geico the Lizard. Yes.
I guess you're right. Yeah, I certainly can't imagine a life without playing music. So I guess I don't think of it as a career, even though if I could be out there on a stage right now safely, I would be.
Mm-hmm. And what was that one moment that influenced you precisely into becoming a singer?
I mean, I don't know if it's one moment. My mom tells a story of me dancing in my crib with MTV on in the background, right?
Oh, wow.
And so I just think I've always been called to the rhythm, so to speak. I started by singing along to the radio and making up dances at recess. And once I realized that I could play guitar, pick up an actual instrument, that was my calling. And I got into, rock music and punk music. And it's only with this band, War on Women, that I actually put the guitar down and focused on fronting a band.
That's interesting. And how'd you get the band started?
Well, one of the guitar players, Brooks Harlan, and I, we were in a band before this in the mid to late 2000s. It's actually the reason I moved to Baltimore, is to join his band. And that was Paul Levesque. And we did that for a long time and did our best, but didn't see any real success. And it started to fizzle out naturally, like many creative endeavors do. And then we decided, well, let's start a new band. Let's start a band that's heavier than the last one. Let's start a band that's overtly feminist. We were, this was in the year 2009, 2010, and we were just getting really fed up with the way that women's rights and equality were being chipped away from the top down. So we wanted to say something about it.
You also released your debut album, a 6-song EP called Improvised Weapons, back in 2012. Tell us more about that one.
Oh, yeah. We released it on Exotic Fever Records, which is run by a really amazing woman named Katie Otto, who was big in the DC music scene back in the day. And that was the first thing we ever did as War on Women. And I sort of come from a world. Most of the bands I've been in are a little more like rock or a little more indie rock. And that's my personal writing style on guitar, which is one of the reasons I don't play guitar in this punk band, because I can't do it. I'm not fast enough. But it was very cool to be in the studio and kind of do one or two takes, because I'm mostly yelling, and to be able to get it out and do it quickly instead of worrying about 3-part harmonies or getting it perfect. It really was about the spirit and the feel. I'd say that as the albums have gone on, we've concentrated more on creating a fuller, more complex musical picture. And so I kind of wish I could still do one takes and get it right. But that was a really exciting time. And we have recorded every record, starting with the first one with Jay Robbins, who was in the band Jawbox. It has a recording studio called Magpie Cage here in Baltimore.
Wow, that's amazing. That's where you recorded the self-titled War on Women, and you can tell us more about that, along with your second full-length album, Capture the Flag.
Yeah, I mean, we got lucky and we were able to sign to Bridge 9 Records, and we've put out every full-length that we've done, so self-titled, Capture the Flag, and then also we're working on a new one right now that we hope will be out later this year, all on Bridge 9 Records. Oh,
that'd be great as well, too. And we'll talk more about your music and your book in just a minute. But first, listen to The Mike Wagner Show at themikewagnershow.com, powered by Sonic Web Studios. Visit online at sonicwebstudios.com for all your needs. Looking for a professional website without breaking your budget? Sonic Web Studios is the answer. Sonic Web Studios offers fast, affordable, custom web designs that blow the competition away. Call today, 1-800-303-3960. That's 1-800-303-3960. Or email to support@sonicwebstudios.com. Mention the Mike Wagner Show. Get 10% off your first order. Sonic Web Studios. Take your image to the next level. Also, the Mike Wagner Show can be heard on the MikeWagnerShow.com. You can check our Facebook page at Facebook.com/The Mike Wagner Show. You can download and listen on Facebook, SoundCloud, Spreaker, Spotify, iHeartRadio, iTunes, Google Play, and Apple, and over 25 podcast platforms. Take the Mike Wagner Show with you on any mobile device. Subscribe to the Mike Wagner Show on the YouTube channel. Also follow the Mike Wagner Show on Instagram and Twitter today. We're here with singer and author and activist Shawna Potter with the War on Women, and also the book Making Spaces Safer here on the Mike Wagner Show. We talked a little bit about how she got started in music and some of her works on War on Women. And of course, you also you've been doing this for quite some time, and your lyrics is used to advocate women's right to choose, universal access to contraception, other feminist issues. And what inspired you to basically just write about the issues that involve women, and also some of the issues that are going on today?
Yeah, well, I tell you, it was just being fed up. I just got really fed up with, at the time it was George W., who was, making a lot of decisions about what women can do with their bodies. And at the time I was kind of apolitical. I wasn't that inspired to be involved in politics. I didn't think it really applied to me. But once I started learning what, men were deciding on my behalf with absolutely no experience as women, it just seemed really unfair that the decisions were being made in rooms without women, about women. So I was fed up, I was angry, resentful, and I just had to express those feelings. And I think it's rare to see women represented as angry, to see us feel, get out there and tell our stories. And so I think the more that I can do that, the better I feel, and the better off I think some of our audience members feel being able to see it.
Mm-hmm. And also talking about your music as well, too, and some of the lyrics based on those issues as well. Who are some of your favorite artists, singers, and musicians growing up back in your day, even tied into what you're doing?
I mean, I am lucky enough to have grown up in the 80s with the best pop singers of all time.
Uh-huh.
So huge into Janet Jackson and Madonna and Prince and Michael Jackson and George Michael. It was some of the best music that's ever been made. Mm-hmm. And it was just on the radio. They were doing it in real time back then. So I have a huge affinity for a really good dance song, right? Mm-hmm. But I also was turned on to Sonic Youth and Bikini Kill and The Refused and other bands that were saying something and sort of challenging the status quo and not playing mainstream rock radio kind of music.
Mm-hmm. It also reminds me of Black Flag, too, with Henry Rollins, based on Minneapolis. And that gave me an image as well, too, that when you get up and, sing about issues like that where most of the mainstream don't dare to do so, it just makes me think of that image. And he made it, fairly popular.
Oh, yeah. He sure did get popular. Yeah, we actually had the chance to tour with Flag a few years ago. Henry was not there. I think he's a little too big to do Black Flag. But it was an honor to be able to play with so many original members of Flag. It was great.
That is something as well, too. And what are some of your favorite concerts that you went to, especially the ones that start inspiring the stage presence that you guys have?
Well, I was kind of lucky to come up in Nashville. When I was in high school, I was living in Nashville, and I got to see a lot of music come through there, or at least through Atlanta, which we would always drive to go see shows in Atlanta. So I tried to see as many bands as I could, just because I liked music. And there were a lot of good festivals, free, open to the public street festivals in Nashville. It's kind of hard to narrow it down, actually, I'm sorry to say. But really, of course, anytime a woman was on stage, I was tuned in and paying attention and either taking notes or figuring out what I liked or didn't like. And it was always really important to me to see other women on stage.
And who would you say your favorite performer in terms of women on stage were, and who did you take up after?
Well, I have to admit that I was a huge fan of the band Hole and Courtney Love, and kind of a, I don't care what you think sort of attitude that is very punk. But I also remember seeing Tori Amos and Erykah Badu, and absolutely falling in love with Erykah Badu, who just captivated this entire huge audience, and put on such a great show for a long time, hours, right? Playing for hours. So yeah, I would say Erykah Badu, Tori Amos, and Hole. And Veruca Salt was really fun too.
And also get into the concert experience as well, too, and talking about the book, Making Spaces Safer, not just anywhere, concerts and more. We'll talk about the book, but first listen to The Mike Wagner Show at themikewagnershow.com, powered by Sonic Web Studios. Visit online at sonicwebstudios.com for all your needs. Look at a professional website without breaking your budget. Sonic Web Studios is the answer. Sonic Web Studios offers fast, affordable custom web designs that blow the competition away. Call today, 1-800-303-3960. That's 1-800-303-3960. Or email to support@sonicwebstudios.com. Mention the Mike Wagner Show. Get 10% off your first order. Sonic Web Studios. Take your image to the next level. Also, the Mike Wagner Show can be heard on themikewagnershow.com. You can check our Facebook page at facebook.com/The Mike Wagner Show. You can also download and listen on Facebook, SoundCloud, Spreaker, Spotify, and iHeartRadio. Also on Anchor FM, Radio Public, iTunes, Google Play, Apple, over 25 podcast platforms. Check The Mike Wagner Show on any mobile device. Subscribe to The Mike Wagner Show on the YouTube channel. Also follow The Mike Wagner Show on Instagram and Twitter today. We're here with singer, activist, and author Shawna Potter here on The Mike Wagner Show. She's a singer of War on Women and also a new book out called Making Spaces Safer. And, of course, this also applies to anywhere you go, like at music venues, nightclubs, community spaces, even art galleries, bagel shops, and more. And before we get into details, tell us all about the book and what inspired you to write it.
Yeah, well, I've actually been teaching safer space tactics for the last 6 years or so. And really, it just came from a place of realizing that I wanted safer spaces personally. And through my activism with anti-street harassment work, there are just so many people in our communities that don't have equal access to leisure time, that are harassed for just being who they are when they enter a space that should be fun for everyone. So after teaching these tactics for a long time, I realized, I was repeating myself and I should just go ahead and write it all down. That way I can save my breath. I can save somebody money. They can have equal, better access to the information for cheaper than paying for a workshop or something. And really that the message could go farther than I could ever travel. So yeah, I just wanted a one-stop shop where everything around safer spaces could be in one place. So it really is a great basic guidebook for people to start making their space overtly friendly and open to everyone.
Now, did you have an incident per se that you felt violated when it came to space and having that in your Making Spaces Safer? Was there an incident that you felt violated in a certain space area or anything similar like that?
Oh, sure. I mean, I've had plenty. It's almost hard to narrow it down. And I know that my experience is not unique. I've been touched inappropriately. I've had very vulgar or rude things said to me. I've had men follow me around a bar. And what ends up happening is that the folks that are being bothered and harassed are the ones that usually end up leaving their good time because they don't want to deal with the harassment and they don't trust people working at the venue to handle it appropriately. And this was happening all the time to my friends and acquaintances. And I just got really tired of the idea that someone working at a venue, especially those that are running security, right, and are supposed to keep us safe, I hated the idea that they wouldn't know how to handle that kind of situation. And so these tools, while they're for everyone, no matter what your experience level is or your authority position, or if you're in the audience or on the stage, I give information that everyone can use. But I really wanted to equip the workers with the ability to make sure that they would make sure that everyone had a good time. But yeah, there's so many incidents. My friends had been called the N-word and had to leave. And these are even in supposedly progressive and cool spaces. And that just didn't seem fair to me. And also, too, is self-defense encouraged or discouraged? Like, say, use pepper spray, or say, like with like I'm trying to think of a move used like in Kung Fu or Taekwondo, or just like a simple punch or anything like that. Is self-defense like that encouraged or discouraged? Well, I tell you what, there are plenty of resources out there around self-defense. And people have plenty of access to that information if they want it. I personally have taken self-defense classes. I think I would never tell a victim of harassment or assault that they could or couldn't use self-defense tactics, right? But it's not really about that. It's about the idea that everyone else in the room outnumbers the person harassing and the person being harassed, and that they have plenty of power, non-violent power, to neutralize the situation, de-escalate the situation, and keep everybody safe. So that's who I'm concentrating on, because I just didn't think this information for all the bystanders was out there and spelled out as clearly enough.
And it's also, there's addition of personal stories, case studies, sample policies, and also interesting advice like how to flirt without being a creep. That's an interesting one.
I mean, we all have room for improvement, right? So, yeah, I included that chapter in my book after doing a lot of talks at universities and college and getting these really sincere questions, especially from young men who really truly wanted to know, how do you hit on someone without being accused of harassment? Like, how do you actually show your interest in a way that doesn't offend someone? So, yeah, I put an entire chapter so that we can all do a little bit better at reading clues and respecting boundaries while still saying, yeah, I think you're cute.
Or you can just say, hi.
You could just start there, right?
Yeah, that's probably the simplest one in the book. And what's your sign? Yeah, the sign's the door. I gotta say that. So, and of course, you have some really good ones too, like how to be a good citizen in spaces during a pandemic, and how certain people like POC and Asians being unfairly treated in public spaces because of COVID. And first of all, how do you be a good citizen in spaces during a pandemic?
Well, it's just like any other time. Basically, I include a section in the book about the 5 Ds of bystander intervention. And what's so great about the 5 Ds is that they can apply to basically any situation. They're specific enough and yet vague enough to be malleable. So even if we're wearing masks, even if there's less people out and about at one time, harassment is still going on. And as a bystander, you have so much power to intervene and make sure that the person being harassed feels supported. And people might not understand why that's important, but in the moment, if someone else is around and gives you even a supportive eye glance, it can actually lessen the trauma surrounding a harassment incident by half, which is huge. By just giving a glance, right? By just giving a knowing glance. So that's the least we can do. And there are so many other things we could do too. So it might be difficult to be direct when we are advised to stay 6 feet away from people and we're wearing masks, but we can certainly check in with the person being harassed, ask if they're okay. We can delegate. We can get someone that works at the grocery store to step in if we think something is escalating or getting serious, and they can keep an eye on it, especially if you're concerned for your own safety and you don't feel like it's okay for you to get close to anyone right now, which is a very valid concern.
Right. And another concern as well, too, like certain people, like, you got Asians, you got the blacks, you also got, Jewish and also Indian, and, you think of every race and every ethnicity possible being fairly treated in public spaces because of COVID. And how do you guys handle that?
Well, again, in the moment, the best thing to do is use the 5 Ds. And so you can be direct, but you can also distract. You can delegate, like we talked about. You can use the delayed method, which is, again, just checking in with the person and asking if they're okay. And you can also document. So from a distance, you could take a video on your cell phone and give it to the victim if they wanted to use it again in the future.
That is interesting as well, too. You're able to promote safety for women in public spaces like concert halls, and you've dealt with sexism in your touring, and also, most importantly, how musicians are adjusting to the new normal in the age of Corona. So I guess we're just kind of just, going, I guess we just blew through the Rubicon and enter the whole new age where it's like you can't go back to the way it was. Basically, it used to be you crowd together, you mosh together, mosh pit, and interact closely. Now with the COVID, it's like you have to do things a lot different. Safety for women in public spaces. like at concert halls, even Madison Square Garden of all places.
Right, safety for everyone, right?
Right. And, of course, you also dealt with the sexism in your touring as well, too, and it seemed like there's a lot of it going around as well.
I mean, sexism has been around since the invention of modern society, if not before, just like any other ism, right? So my book definitely, while I come from a background of playing shows and being a woman, everything in my book can apply to any space where we gather, and it applies to any marginalized community that needs to be protected, that is harassed just for being who they are, which is not okay. So the tactics are workable no matter what situation you're in.
Mm-hmm. And how are the musicians adjusting to Corona?
Ooh, I think everyone is just out here doing their best, I personally, as soon as we had a tour booked and it got canceled the week before it was supposed to start, and that was in mid-March. And so once that tour was canceled, that's when it really solidified that this is a big deal for me and that things were changing, right? So first thing I did, I was out a lot of money. Not going on tour, right? Bands invest a lot of money up front to go on tour. So we had a ton of merch sitting around. We just got new equipment, a new microphone, and I was just setting on my credit card. So my first priority was to sell as much merch as I could online so that I could pay off my credit card debt. The next priority was to start looking for grants or any kind of relief that was possible because I didn't trust that unemployment benefits would come my way. When I was done with the grant cycling, then finally unemployment opened up in Maryland for people, 1099ers like me, right? So now I've got that going, and now I'm just working on, okay, what kind of job can I have in this new era of Zoom? If everything's online, I need to make sure I can start doing these safer space trainings online. So that's what I've been doing.
Mm-hmm. And how can people contact you about safer spaces training?
Just go to my website, which is shawnapotter.com, SHAWNAPOTTER.com, and it has all the information there about what kind of trainings I do, what I can talk about, if I'm going to do workshop, a private training, a discussion, feminist coaching, all kinds of stuff. I'm open to it right now, obviously, because everyone's just trying to do their best. And
where can we find your book at?
Well, hopefully you will order it from your local bookstore because they're doing curbside service. So order it from your local bookstore. If you can't get it there, then you can order it from the publisher directly, which is AK Press. You can find it at akpress.org. If you have to get it on the site that shall not be named, I don't judge you. I'd rather you have the book than not. But see what you can do about supporting a small local business first.
Mm-hmm. And that's a very good idea. Once again, singer, author, activist Shawna Potter here on the Mike Wagner Show. Just a few more minutes with you. You've been fantastic. Thank you for your time. You've been great. Looking forward to getting soon. Just a few more minutes here. And you've had a lot of moments up on stage. You talked about all the incidents you have, but kind of turning the tide a little bit. What are some of the funniest moments you've had on stage?
Oh, that's a great question, actually. I remember just this last October, we were playing a festival, and one of our songs is called Pleasure and the Beast. Mm-hmm. And so I'm sort of singing about this beast, and all of a sudden, someone in the audience pops up, and they're wearing like this furry wolf mask. And I was like, oh, you're the beast. Okay, I get it. And I started singing to them, and I came over to them, and I'm sure I got on their shoulders or something ridiculous, got in the audience with them. But I was like, did you plan this just for us? That was really wild to kind of look up all of a sudden and see the beast. There he is.
It makes me think of Little Red Riding Hood and the wolf, and says, my, you got big eyes you have. That better to see you. And I can imagine this. Wow, you got such a furry costume. That better to have you on stage, my dear, and sing with you.
Yeah.
Oh, I can imagine that. I mean, you should encourage more of that, too, just to make things fun. And
more fun, yeah.
Yeah. And who do you consider biggest influence in your career?
Oh, I think there are so many people that do so much. I don't know. I think the bands that have come before us that are political and stick to their guns, I think, like Bikini Kill or Fugazi or The Refused. I think putting your money where your mouth is really matters, and representing your people and your issues really matters. And really, I just want to do right by all the activists and musicians that have come before me. So I'm doing my best to keep learning and keep growing and keep studying so I can be as intersectional and as welcoming as possible in my feminism.
And that's the most important thing as well, too. And what's the best advice you can give to anybody at this point?
To read the book by Bell Hooks called Feminism is for Everybody, or to read the book called We Were Feminists Once. Those are my two big recommendations after my own book, Making Spaces Safer, of course. But really now is such a great time to brush up on bystander intervention skills, conflict resolution, and de-escalation. Because I just think once we all get a little bit closer to normal and we're getting out more and gathering more, we're going to be so worried about the fun of having a drink with our friends or getting back to work and making that necessary money that we've been lacking, that we won't have the time or concentration for those things that are still so necessary to keep our communities safe. So while you're at home and taking care of yourself in the best way that you can, this is the time to learn how to take care of each other the best way that we can.
And I think that's very important, too. And I can imagine myself, getting back to new normal and having some space. And I can imagine a new meeting of, pardon me, do you have any Grey Poupon in social distancing?
Yeah, I don't think we get to do that.
Well, they did in cars, too. I guess that's a good example of social distancing.
Our cars, yeah.
And, of course, lastly, what can we expect to me from 2020 and beyond?
Well, the hope is that we're able to finish our new record and release it this year. I have no solid information, but we are working on finishing touches right now, finishing up the artwork. So I'd like to have something out end of this year. And we'll just see when it's safe to play shows again. But as soon as it is, we will be chomping at the bit to get back out there and perform live.
Sounds great, and looking forward to having it again soon and keeping us up to date. Once again, singer, songwriter, and author Shawna Potter on the Mike Wagner Show. Shawna, big thank you for your time. You've been fantastic. Looking forward to having you again soon. Once again, tell us about your upcoming projects, what's your website, how do people contact you, and where can people purchase your book and listen and purchase your music?
Well, everyone can find anything they ever wanted to know about me on shawnapotter.com. Easiest place to look. And thank you so much, Mike, for having me.
And thank you as well, too. Looking forward to having you again soon. Do us a favor. Keep us up to date. We'd love to have you back.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening to The Mike Wagner Show, powered by Sonic Web Studios. Visit online at sonicwebstudios.com for all your needs. The Mike Wagner Show can be heard on Spreaker, Spotify, iHeartRadio, iTunes, YouTube, Anchor FM, Radio Public, and themikewagnershow.com. Please support our program with your donations at themikewagnershow.com. Join us again next time for another great episode of The Mike Wagner Show.